Welcome to the weekly Habitant for October 10th. Quiet week for news. They wrapped up the training camps. The season opens on Thursday in Buffalo. McCarron was sent down today. He was sent down. That pretty much completes the team due to a few injuries. So what's on the roster right now? They have completed their team. If you're interested in finding out who made the team, you should listen to our previous segment. As well, there was a trade this week for the Montreal Canadiens. Tim Bozan, a forward, was traded for Jonathan Racine. And that was a huge trade. Well, it wasn't a huge trade. I'm kidding. But it was an interesting trade because Jonathan Racine is from Montreal, and that always raises eyebrows. And he'll be going off to play with the Laval Rocket. And a lot of people pointed out that it could be an interesting idea to, fill up the Laval Rocket with some local talent. Why not? It could be an interesting project. So he's from Montreal. However, both players are, lower end draft picks. And that's pretty much it in Hab news. I had to look for news on a player that we had followed in past podcasts, and that's Martin Rewe. We had reported that he was hospitalized with a pretty serious virus. Well, it turned out he had a cardiac inflammation. But to give you an update, he seems to be doing better. TVA Sport sent out a report saying that on his Instagram, he was seen in a car with two friends driving around. So that's great news. Now, I don't know if he's still at the hospital and his friends went and picked him up and went for a joyride, or if he's actually been released from hospital. It wasn't quite specific on that, but very happy to see him doing better and on his feet and enjoying life. Good. In NHL news, we'll do some NHL news. Sometimes you'll find that in the weekly Habitant. It won't be always Montreal Canadian news. You might find some NHL news. Since this week's a little weak on the Montreal news, or it has been covered in the previous section, we'll do a little NHL news. And the big news this week, for me at least, was Jonathan Huberdeau, as we briefly talked about, out for 3 to 4 months. So he got a cut on the back of his leg, and it's a pretty bad cut, gruesome injury. So he's going to miss a good part of the season, which is definitely not good news for the Florida Panthers. He's a very important piece of their offense. So 3 to 4 months for Jonathan Huberdeau. The ongoing joke is don't pick him in your pool. As well, Yakupov was finally traded. Here's a player who's probably been in the trade rumors for the last few years even. He was traded for Zach Pochiro of St. Louis. Trade was with St. Louis. And a third-round conditional draft pick in 2017. I bring this trade up only simply because Yakupov has often been involved in rumors involved with the Habs. And so now he is probably off their radar. And personally, I think that's a good thing. I'm not a big Yakupov fan. Let's move on. P.A. Parenteau was put on waivers by the New York Islanders. I bring it up simply because he's an ex-Hab player, and he's on waivers and he's available. We mentioned in this segment before that no one is being picked up on waivers. So, it's an interesting situation for Mr. Parenteau. In Olympic news, since we did a huge segment on the Olympics last week, the NHL is planning to go to Korea to take a look at the hockey installations over there for the Olympics. So it looks like the NHL is sniffing around, making sure it's, everything's proper. There's no decision yet as to if they're going to actually go to the Olympics. They have to make that decision by January 15th. So that'll be coming up in the next few months. Could be a yes, could be a no. We'll definitely be following that. And finally in the NHL, Connor McDavid of the Edmonton Oilers was named captain. He is going to be, or is, the youngest captain in NHL history. He is 19 years old. And it's an interesting move by the Edmonton Oilers. Anytime a 19-year-old is named captain, it raises eyebrows, and as it should. But there's a pretty good history of 19, 20-year-olds being named captain. You go through the list: Crosby, Yzerman, Toews, all players that definitely worked out. It's actually kind of hard to find ones that didn't. At least for me, there could be. So, when you look at the Edmonton Oilers, they are actually in a position where they could give this guy a good year or two to learn how to be captain. And, I think everyone agrees that this franchise is dependent upon this player. 5, 6, 7 years from now, I think Connor McDavid is going to be a very, very special player. He already is. So on that front there, it's a good move. It's a good move. I think it's a good move. And so McDavid, captain of the Edmonton Oilers. So a short segment on Weekly Habitant. I'd like to take this opportunity again to thank my friend Dave, who came in and did a wonderful job on the preview show. Ironically, he has been pushing me to do smaller segments, and we did an hour-long segment, and so, that's the way it goes. When you talk about the Habs, you have a lot to say sometimes. I think it's kind of funny we forgot to predict where the Habs are going to finish in the whole segment, but you could find that in the NHL section, or right here, I'll tell you. I believe Dave thinks they'll finish pretty good, up there in the table, second, third, maybe fourth. I'm more inclined to think they'll be in the 6th, 5th spot. However, I come with the caveat that I could easily see them finishing higher, and I could easily see them finishing lower. So that was pretty much our predictions on what the Montreal Canadiens are going to do. I know my position's a bit of I take everything, but that's really how I feel about them. I'm not as optimistic as a lot of people seem to be in Montreal. I still have a very sour taste in my mouth from last year. I understand we have a lot of new players, but we still have a lot of older players that were on that team last year. And I think we were exposed last year with Carey Price, falling down, and it showed what we had behind him, and it wasn't great. Now, I will say this, though. For this year, we have some youth that's definitely very interesting. Very interesting. So things are looking good for the Habs. So we'll wrap it up there, and I wish everyone an absolutely wonderful week. I wish everyone a great season opener on Thursday against Buffalo, hoping for a big win, and have a great week, everyone. This is the Angry Habs podcast show. Have a great day.